We're going live.
And we're live.
We are indeed.
How's it going?
Perfect timing. How's everybody?
Good. How many weeks are we at now, Cal?
I think we're still between 20 and 25, man. I'm sticking with the 5-week intervals between 20 and 25 when we're going live. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, so how's everybody doing this week?
Doing good, man.
I was just going to say, I'm pretty sure Cali is far more precise on his budgets than he is on our weeks 20 to 25.
At least I hope so, anyways.
Yeah.
All right, so why don't we do the usual and just kind of introduce each other or introduce ourselves, I guess. Alex, do you want to start us off?
Sure, my pleasure. Alex Mustatea, I'm an active investor and based out of Hamilton, Ontario. I got projects. I guess my focus is flips and multifamily conversion projects. I guess starting from Etobicoke throughout Hamilton, and then most recently moving more and more towards Chatham, Western Ontario. I can be reached at 289-769-8975 or on Instagram, alexandru.mustatea.
Awesome. Brad?
Yeah, I'm Brad Plume, currently focused in the areas of Grey and Bruce County, as well as the Tri-Cities, Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge, working on some flips, and also just kind of starting into the new end of things of some joint ventures with some rental properties. You can reach me, or if you want to get in contact, at 519-379-7911 or brad.plume on Instagram.
Great. Mr. Braithwaite?
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
We got you, Cali.
Cali Braithwaite, can you hear me? All right. Perfect. Sorry about that. Yeah, Cali Braithwaite's my name. I'm in the GTA. I'm currently actively focusing on flips and assignments. So I'm raising capital for those and looking for deals to bring my partners in and invest their capital and make them some money. Focusing in the GTA, Southern Ontario, also the Eastern Canada and the Moncton area. And I'm enjoying the journey. So if you want to reach out to me, 289-207-5316, or you can find me at Instagram at Grow with Cali. And yeah, I'd love to chat to you and discuss what I'm working on. Shawn,
awesome.
Take it away, brother.
And I'm Shawn Gunther out of the Moncton, New Brunswick area, and I am currently looking to expand as well. So anybody looking to buy, sell, or invest in properties here in New Brunswick, definitely get in touch with me, and you can reach me at 506-800-4289 or on Instagram at the Moncton Wholesaler. So today is a little bit out of the norm. We actually have a very, very special guest that I hope some of our audience actually knows. It's Catherine O'Neill, and she is an engineer who's worked 30 years at Procter & Gamble. She owns 3 investment properties, including some student rentals. She's also a private lender, lending for flips and buy and holds. She's married with 2 kids and 2 cats and loves to travel. So without further ado, here's Catherine O'Neill.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Catherine.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Welcome
awesome.
to We're Going Live.
I am so happy to be here. I was so grateful to get your invitation. So very excited to be able to be with you lovely gentlemen and talk a little bit about what I do and how things are going and all that stuff. So thank you.
That's great.
Awesome.
We're extremely happy to have you.
For sure.
I think we got a bit of a delay.
Is it from me?
I don't know. I just went to talk and then you're going to talk, so I'm assuming that there's kind of a delay going on right between me speaking and getting to you and vice versa, maybe. But that's not a big deal.
Right. Okay.
Why don't you go ahead and ask Catherine some questions now?
Or how about I'll tell you a little bit about what I'm doing. You guys talked about what you're doing. I'll tell you what I'm doing. So I am a business owner focusing in Windsor. I have a couple of investment properties, a multiplex and some single families, and started off in Guelph, moved over to Windsor because of the cash flow. Some of those are student rentals, really like the student rental market. My kids are student rental age, so I know the age, I like the age. I'm also doing some private lending, both of my own money, and then would like to be able to work with people to help them be able to find another stream of income by using equity that they've got in their house or other properties, and to be able to make some money. So that's kind of where I am.
Right on.
I'm going to assume this is not the call to pitch you on deals for lending.
No, not at this point, no.
That's actually why we invited
Yeah.
No,
Good, you guys brought the bank to the call.
But Alex, I'm really pretty amazed because I worked diligently, saved my money. It was funny when my husband and I were getting married. We had bought our property before we were getting married, about 3 months beforehand, and we're signing the paperwork for the house. And he had to go to the bathroom, so he walks out, and the lawyer sort of turns to me and he says, "What about a prenup?" And I'm like, "But why?" He's like, "You're bringing the whole down payment for the house," because he had very little money, like none. And, and I was bringing the $60,000 for the down payment because I have always saved my money and always been careful, and, went to university at home so I could save money, went on a scholarship so I could save money. And so with all that saving and focus and living within your means, it was just a really big shock to find out that your house is paid off. If you've got maybe other properties that are paid off, you could actually use that money to be able to have a second stream of income. I was blown away when I heard about that, because I just thought, you pay off your house, that's a good thing to do, and then it means it's paid off and you don't have to pay any more mortgage payments. To actually realize you could do something with that money, wild, absolutely wild. So you can be the bank. That's just amazing.
Maybe you could talk on that, Catherine, in the sense of how the change in mindset happened, where before you probably looked at that and thought, hey, that's way too risky and I would never do that, and I like to have my equity sit there and that's my little nest egg, versus now going, hey, you know what, let's actually benefit from this and maximize the potential benefits from it.
Well, certainly at the beginning, I didn't even know it was possible. If you had told me this, I would have said, no, that's a bank thing. So even realizing that it was possible was eye-opening. But then you're absolutely right. It seems risky. Oh goodness, I've worked so hard and so long. What if I lose the money? What if somebody takes it? What if it's too risky? But then when you look at it, rationally, and start to say, well, what is it I'm afraid of? You start to realize, you're covered all the way. This is done with a lawyer. This is not done something, you and I are writing up together. Lawyers involved. It's official. The second thing is that you can go secured, which means that you secure it against a property, so that if somebody defaults and doesn't forget about not paying back the loan, doesn't even give you the little bit of interest you're supposed to get, then you are able to immediately start to foreclose in Ontario, in that situation. But you find people like you good gentlemen here who like and trust, people who are trying to do well, trying to be able to improve their situation, do things, grow a business. And you guys wouldn't default on things because you care too much about growing your businesses, about improving life for your families, about your reputation. And so when you've got people like that, it's pretty minimal. And then, as I said, and then at the end, again, because it's legal, I might have thought, because with mortgages, you pay a lot of fees. It was really interesting for me because you're acting as the bank, that you don't pay any fees. Any appraisals that are done, any payments to the lawyer for them to do their work, this is all paid by the borrower. So as the lender, it's really pretty simple. I was kind of shocked how simple it was, because the lawyer does everything. They do a check on to make sure that there's insurance on the property, that they're up to date with property taxes, a whole bunch of stuff that you might not even think about that you want to be able to make sure are done in case anything ever happened. So for me, it's been very easy. I've got 2 secured loans out right now. And so I'm getting, it's not a lot of money, but $3,000 a month in income, which I didn't have before. And this is all through using my home equity line of credit, which was kind of like dead money to me. It was good money because it was in the house, but kind of dead money. And then the other thing, because I bought my house so long ago, for $350,000, it's now worth, because I'm in Southern GTA, I don't know, 1.5 million, somewhere in there. So I can take advantage of all this appreciation that has happened by virtue of the fact that I live in Southern Ontario. And so it's not even necessarily money that I had to pay into. It's just sort of happened over time. So that's pretty good. And I am trying to think about how do I make this feel less risky for people, because it's your nest egg, it's your house. And so there's a kind of a visceral reaction, and people think like, no, something can happen to it. But the chances are if you do it right, if you're right and you're careful, it's pretty darn low. And if it is, and even if it does happen, you have recourse.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
Can I just add something, if I may? I appreciate what you said as to why we wouldn't default on a loan like that. But I think for anyone listening and considering lending money, there's value in appreciating that what we're trying to achieve here, the type of business that we're trying to implement, the downside of being foreclosed on and our reputation credit being affected by foreclosure is far outweighs the potential of losing on that one deal. So in other words, if I'm involved in a flip and I'm not getting the price that I want, before allowing foreclosure to take place, I'll sell it at a loss to me, which will ultimately, I'll make that up eventually, way before I allow foreclosure on that property. I'm far more involved in protecting my integrity than just that profit for that one project. And I think most of these guys will agree to that.
Well, that is important. People do say things like, well, you can always go bankrupt if it gets that bad. There are downsides to bankruptcy, right? One of and you may not care, but you can't become on a board of directors. So I was the chair of the board of a small children's choir in Mississauga, and not a big board position, but it was, a little board position. I did that for, 7 years or whatever. And you couldn't do that. Not that that's a big deal. I had a personal circumstance where I had found a general contractor and had given him a down payment to be able to do my fiveplex in Windsor. And at some point he had shared with me that in the past, sad story, he'd gone bankrupt, not his fault. And I was like, oh, that's very sad. And then as life progressed, I think it sort of happened again. And there went my deposit for my renovation. And so for me, I looked at it and I thought, and no disrespect to anyone who's had really tough times, but for me, if you've gone bankrupt, I'm not going to lend to you. And I wouldn't, so y'all don't go bankrupt because you won't get my money. And it's just a choice I make. One of the interesting things about being in the driver's seat, about being the bank, is you get to choose who you lend to. You get to choose who you work with. I'm working with a gentleman right now who I've lent some money to. He's great. On the 15th, like clockwork, at 8 o'clock in the morning, in comes the e-transfer payment. I don't have to ask. I don't have to remind. It's in there. I would work with him anytime. It was a relatively small loan. I would absolutely do a larger one because he's just proven to me how trustworthy he is. Maybe other people, and you have to remind them, and it's not quite on time, and things go a little bit longer. And I'm thinking, that's not the level of professionalism that I want to work with. And so I will get a chance to decide in the future, who do I want to work with? And you can decide for yourself in your own business, what are the types of people, what are the circumstances that you're comfortable with or that mesh with you. So absolutely, it's reputation. My dad used to talk about reputation when I was a kid, and I always thought he was talking about sex, right? Like, yeah, I don't have sex, but I now appreciate it was a much larger conversation he was trying to communicate, and it was just, me at the time was thinking it was about this one thing. But I have come to realize how important that is, and Alex, you're absolutely right. You destroy your reputation, wow, it will take a really, really long time to get that back, if ever.
It's a smaller community than we appreciate at times. Sorry, go ahead, Kelly.
Sorry, guys, I might have a delay here today. But Catherine, one thing that came to mind listening to your, you talk there was the screening process. So can you touch on that a little bit? Like, as far as, are you doing credit checks? How do you know if someone has been bankrupt or not? Or how does this process look for the people that you're looking forward to working with?
So for the people that I'd be lending to, or that I would be recommending people lend to, yes, if I didn't know them very well for very long, then I would be doing some sort of credit check. As you all know, we're in kind of a group that is a small group of investors, and having spent time with you guys and seen what you're trying to do, I don't feel the need to be able to do a credit check on you guys. I do think it's a question that I would ask actively, have you gone bankrupt, just to be able to get the answer. But you certainly, if you didn't know the person well, that's a way of checking out the credit worthiness of the person. But there are two other things. Checking out the property itself, so having an appraisal to make sure that you really know what the value is of the property. And that appraisal process is more complicated than I thought it was going to be, but I'm glad I went through it on time. So getting an appraisal and being able to see the property, know what the person's trying to do, know what the plans are for the property. So if things go south, you're able to decide whether you would just try and wholesale it, which is just sell it directly, or whether you feel comfortable and continue on with the renovations, or just what. And then the last one is the aspects of the deal itself and looking at what do you need? What's the interest rate that you want to be able to get? And maybe creating a bit of a win-win with the borrower. So maybe it's a benefit for them because they're a flipper to not have to pay interest payments initially, or to pay lower interest payments at the beginning. If you want 10%, maybe I pay, someone pays 5% for 2 or 3 months, then they pay 15% for 2 or 3 months afterwards. It all adds up to 10, but it helps the person be able to pay less at the beginning, or say none, just do a payment right at the end. And maybe for me, what that would do is it would give me a higher level of a higher rate of interest. You'd be prepared to do 10%, but maybe you can do 12% or 15% if you can hold on to your money for a longer period of time. When you're in control, when this is your business, you can do whatever you want. Banks wouldn't do this type of thing, but you can do whatever you want and what makes sense for the borrower.
100%. And that's awesome, Catherine. Like I remember when you first you kind of joined us in our group, and I mean, really, the growth that I've seen in you since is just amazing. And like you said kind of earlier, you know what I mean? You didn't even realize any of this stuff was possible, and I don't think any of us have either, right? Or can't realize that either. So, it may seem pretty complicated to somebody who's like kind of a layperson who doesn't have the access to the information like we do, and maybe looking to lend. Is there anything that you'd suggest to them, or would you just kind of hope they would get in touch with you, or do you have anything set up in the future where you are kind of hosting people to come get that information? It might be easier to get it from you than just from someone else.
I would be really happy to be able to guide anyone through the process, within the limits of what I've done, what I know, because I think it is helpful sometimes to be able to talk to a person directly. A woman reached out to me about 2 weeks ago, and we talked through things. So happy to be able to do that with anyone. It also strikes me that sometimes you guys are doing bigger projects, and so one person's money they may not have enough in conjunction with someone else, so you actually can go in together. There's nothing stopping you from, I don't know, somebody having 20 or 50 or 100,000, someone else having the same, coming in together and being able to lend a larger amount. And if that makes people feel better that they're not putting in that large amount, or alternatively, again, just makes a better deal, you can absolutely do that. I would like to, as you said, Shawn, I am working on getting a website and doing some sharing about my experiences and what I've learned, because, as I had said, I am just blown away with it. And the other thing that, you guys are too young, but when you think about corrections in the stock market, they went way down in March of last year and they came back up very quickly, which was great. But when big corrections happened, remember 2008, and they happened at other times, I always said to myself, well, that's okay. I've got years before I'm going to have to take the stocks out, so don't worry about it. But I was thinking, wow, would it be awful to actually have to be using your capital for retirement at that point if suddenly it dropped by half, as it did in 2008, and took a while to be able to come back? Well, as I'm getting closer to that, I'm beginning to think to myself, well, that is not a theoretical possibility anymore. It's getting closer to maybe possibly being a real possibility. And so the benefit of maybe diversifying your income more than I ever appreciated, and taking some of the money, whether it's your RSP money, which you can self-direct and do with this, or it could be money from your HELOC or whatever, but rather than having to go into your capital for retirement, or if you wanted to diversify before you get there, just in case things go crazy in the stock market, as they have gone in the past sometimes, having some of the money set aside in what is a defined rate of return. 10%, 12%, 15%, or whatever. It doesn't grow like crazy like the stock market has been doing recently, but it also doesn't drop. And so the fact that you can say, well, at least I'm getting 10%, depending on what's happening with the portfolio, that's becoming a more attractive option for me in a way that I didn't think I would think was attractive. And I also didn't know was possible. I thought, the stock market is the stock market. And when I hit 65 or 71, I hope it's good, right? Really hope it's good. Now I'm thinking, I don't necessarily hope, I don't have to hope quite as much, because I can be a little bit more justified. And that was something that I didn't know about. I think that's pretty nifty. I read a book called The Rrsp Secret, which is a Canadian book from about 10 years ago. And it was really great in explaining the concepts and the thinking and going through some of the due diligence that you would certainly want to do for your RSP, because those are your RSPs, but also you could apply to other pots of cash and HELOCs and stuff like that.
100%. Well, and I love your story too when it comes to deal with this, because you were, in my opinion, now correct me if I'm wrong, you were kind of you thought it was all kind of maybe possibly a scam, or you didn't really know how it worked. So you were a doubter at first, and to see you come around and now you kind of see the light of it all and how great it possibly can be, right? And I would love to just kind of fire you to even have your story to show to somebody, and because I deal with a lot of people now, and there's so much scarcity when it comes to being involved in investing in properties, because they see it as a risk. And to see someone like yourself who's doubted it prior to getting into it, and now that you have all the information, you see it completely the opposite way.
Well, I hadn't appreciated, maybe it was the mindset that I grew up with. My parents were born during the Depression. That impacted them very much. They told stories to me about how they survived They ate beans. They didn't have that much money. And wow, have they done well, coming from such a humble beginnings. My aunts and uncles are farmers and tradespeople. My mom and dad were one of the, two of the few professionals in their, coming from their little town of Grand Falls, New Brunswick, which my mom is from, and then all the families in St. Stephen's and Fredericton and all throughout there. And then my dad was from Drumheller, Drumheller, Alberta, and then moved up to the big city of Edmonton and worked there for a while. Also was, like you guys, working up in Fort McMurray for a while. But their stories were all about, managing your bottom line, saving money, don't live outside of your means. And they were very good stories, but I hadn't appreciated kind of how small then maybe you think about things. We used to move around a lot as a kid, and at one point I remember we were in some house and I thought, oh, I'd like to do this to my bedroom, and it would just be so much nicer because I was a teenager. And I thought, oh no, don't do that, you could reduce the value of the house and then we won't be able to sell it for as much, and then that won't be good. And I hadn't even realized, because I never thought that I could increase the value of the house, just that it was possible to decrease the value. And as I reflect back, I can see that was a bit of, people in the investment world or in the self-employed world goes like, oh, you have a job. My job was great for me. I really appreciated everyone I worked with. I learned so much, but you only have so many degrees of freedom. You have to watch. You can't make more money unless they give you more money, so you have to watch what you spend. I'm beginning to realize now that when you work for yourself, it's just a matter of how hard you work and the insight you have and the great people you work with and the people you associate with. And something like the sky's sort of the limit. You could do really well. And I'm the person in my family who has to write those stories because I wasn't given those stories by my parents. If I want my children to have those stories, and my nieces and my nephews, I'm going to have to be the one in our family to write that story, which is a little daunting. But it's a little easier now when you realize, okay, that I guess needs to be part of what my role is.
You're probably the best example of someone that used to trade time for money and is now trading money for more money.
Isn't that amazing, Alex? Isn't it absolutely? I'm still shocked by it, and I can see people being so skeptical and saying, well, that's not possible. I was talking to a friend and he's like, no, don't risk your house. I'm like, oh, risk your house. I'm not risking my house. I have a contract done by a lawyer. So that's like when you buy things, you're not risking it. Lawyers mitigate your risk, but there's still some of that mentality. And I'm so much want to be able to share with people and say there are things that they didn't tell you about in school and that your stock advisor doesn't tell you about because they don't get the benefit of that. And wouldn't it be great that you don't have to dip into your capital when you retire, or you've got another stream of income if you want to go on a great trip, if you want to be able to give money to your kids earlier versus later, like so many things that you could do if you had just a little bit more money. And oh, wait, you could do it.
That's awesome. And I really like, the framework of that one, the way you put it, where you're almost changing generational like self-talk, right? Like, and you know what I mean? You're giving that inspiration to the younger generations that come through your family now. So that, to me, that's just beautiful. We have kind of come up on our time here though today. So if anybody wanted to kind of start doing some send-offs here and just kind of do a last little outro before we shut her down, do you want to go ahead, Catherine?
I just thank you, property dads, property guys, for giving me this opportunity. I have I remember when you were talking about doing this, and I thought, how smart, how wonderful how great. So thank you for inviting me on. I really appreciate it and giving me a chance to talk and giving me a chance to spend some time with you lovely gentlemen. And so if anyone wants to reach out to me, there's my contact information, email, because I'm still old-fashioned, or Instagram, all great. And I would be happy to talk about borrowing, but also really happy to talk about if other people would like to lend money so that they can unleash the wealth that's in the equity that's in their property. That I'd be very happy to talk with you. So
that's almost a tagline in itself, just that you can use: unleash the wealth.
Cool.
All right, Alex, do you want to just do your send off and say goodbye?
Yeah. No, sure. Again, well, Catherine, thank you very much for joining us. My name is Alex Mustatea. I'm the active investor in Hamilton. If anybody is inspired by Catherine and would consider lending, I encourage you to contact her, and you can learn as much as you can from her, and then come to me when you're ready to lend. My contact details are at the bottom.
Awesome. Brad, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show, Catherine. It was great to hear from you. I appreciate that. And yeah, if anybody wants to get in touch with me and investing in the Grey Bruce area or the Tri-Cities, feel free to reach out. That'd be great. Info's on the screen there. But yeah, it was a great chat, Catherine.
Awesome. Hey, Catherine, thanks again for joining us. Always a pleasure. I'm sure we'll have you back on again. It's really cool to be able to hear about your, transformation from employee to, lender, private lender, financer, kind of, this is awesome, right? It's never too late, you know what I mean? So if anybody wants to, reach out to Catherine, please do, and reach out to her and hear her story and talk about, opportunities. I'm Cali Braithwaite out of the GTA, actively working on flips and assignments in Southern Ontario and Eastern Canada. If you want to reach out to me, my contact details are there. Please put some comments. If you're watching this after today, put some comments and let us know what you thought. If you have any questions that we can answer or for Catherine to answer, we would love to get back to you and encourage that audience participation. Thanks again.
Awesome. And again, I'm Shawn Gunther out of the Moncton, New Brunswick area, and my number is 506-800-4289, and at IG at the Moncton Home Buyer for anyone who wants to get in contact with me for buying, selling, or investing in New Brunswick. And I just want to end the show by thanking Catherine so much for joining us today. She is a light, bright, shining light in our group, and we are always grateful to have her information and hear her speak, because she's just such a wealth of knowledge with all this stuff. So thank you again, Catherine, for joining us today. And that'll be all for today. So hopefully we see you all again next week at this same time on Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And goodbye for now.
Thanks.